Do you ever get to the end of the month and wonder where all your money has gone? Do your monthly expenses ever exceed your monthly income, causing you stress, forcing you deeper into debt? Do you find it hard to save money for emergencies or retirement? Well, if so, a budget may make you more aware of your income and your expenses, and it will enable you to make more informed spending and saving choices. Hi, my name is Greg Klein with Hayes Financial Group, and I'm happy to bring this budgeting presentation to you. In this presentation, we will first cover why a budget is important, and I think the importance of a budgeting is really self-evident. While we record this presentation in 2020, it's been a difficult year with a pandemic. We have intense natural disasters like wildfires and hurricanes. So budgeting, it allows you to be more in control of your finances and build that little bit of emergency reserve. And in 2020, that's become a priority for many of us. So we'll also look at how to create a budget based on your personal preferences. We'll look at some different budgeting systems. We'll talk about priorities, things like debt repayment. And then, of course, we'll look at examples of those different systems. And we understand that budgeting is not necessarily a favorite activity, but hopefully we'll give you some information that will make it easier and less painful for you. Why use a budget in the first place? A budget is your financial compass. It tells you if you're going in the right or wrong direction. And without it, you can't get to where you want to go. As they say, ignorance is bliss. And you might not want to track your spending and income in a budget because, after all, it will paint a clear picture for you whether you are living within your means. And in this way, a budget is also a bit of a financial therapist. It helps you better understand your relationship with your money. But budgeting advice is like parenting advice. So some of it is totally universal and applies in every case, but most of it is something that you have to figure out through trial and quite a bit of error, perhaps. So you have to find the method or the system that works best for you. And I will go over some of these options in our presentation. If you're like many of us, creating a budget might not be at the top of your list of favorite things to do. It's probably up there with other financial activities like doing your taxes, trying to figure out what health insurance to sign up for during open enrollment. But the difference with a budget is you can always procrastinate or put off putting a budget together. It's not like if you don't pay your taxes, the tax man is going to come knocking on your door looking for that money. We can always put off making a budget. But it's an important part of understanding your financial picture. And I hope you take the initiative to set up a budget after listening to this presentation. Budgeting, however, it's not magic, though I do call it a cornerstone of your financial freedom and a life with less stress. Creating a budget can help you feel more in control of your financial state. Think about some of these benefits. Budgeting, it helps you build savings by keeping you from overspending. It's a motivational tool. It helps you figure out where you can cut back or where you can eliminate some spending. Me personally, I love automatic savings. But me, just like most people, we're much more likely to automate our spending. And a budget will give you that clear picture. You'll see how much spending you're doing on periodic basis. Most of the time it's a month, and see some of those subscriptions, some of those services that you're paying for, and see how they add up where they might not be worth the money that you pay for them anymore, and you might be able to cut them back and then use that money that you're saving to apply to your other priorities. A budget might also motivate you to earn more money because, after all, once you put your budget together, if it doesn't look good, we only have two options. We can either spend less or we can earn more money. And then at the end of the month, when you have that surplus, you can set it aside for your emergencies, retirement, a big purchase like maybe a new home. But budgets, they help you get out of debt by showing you how much you can dedicate to these different endeavors, and how you can get out of debt even faster. But really, a budget, it helps you build self-discipline. Once you start following a budget, you'll build new, better habits. It'll become routine. And this will eventually lead to more cash in your pocket and less stress. Knowing your priorities and setting goals will help you prioritize your budget. You'll see a list of priorities on this slide. The top three are pretty universal. I have them in bold. After those, then it boils down again to your personal preference and what you want to do with your individual budget and your individual priorities. But at the top of the list, it's get the easy money first. For most people, that means if your employer offers a match through the retirement plan, contribute at least enough to grab the maximum match. It's an automatic return that you can't pass up, and you want to make capturing this match a very high priority. Why maybe higher than paying off some debt? Well, that's because you don't get another chance at this big of an opportunity, this extra help where you get a match on the savings that you make, you get a tax break saving in an employer-sponsored retirement plan, you get the compounding effect, and ultimately you'll have a better shot at building wealth by getting in the habit of regular long-term savings, like taking advantage of your employer-sponsored retirement plan and ensuring that you get all the match. You don't get a second chance at that compounding. If you lose time, you can't make up for lost time. So you want to get all that help you can. You want to get that match. If you're just starting your career and you're in your 20s or 30s, every little bit that you save today can add up to thousands of extra dollars in your retirement. So that's got to be the top priority. After getting any match, then the order of the next couple of points, it does depend on your individual priorities, though building at least a small emergency fund, that can give you the confidence to tackle paying off other bigger debts with even more vigor. Because in the end, if you can't get out of debt without a way to avoid more debt every time something unexpected happens, so you want to have that little bit of, at least that little bit of emergency savings, plus you'll sleep better at night knowing that you have at least a tiny bit of a financial cushion. Then when you know you're in good shape, you're saving for retirement, you're taking advantage of any employer match, you have some kind of emergency fund, you're working on getting out of debt, then you can start to work on some of those other things, getting rid of other toxic debt. Like, if you have large amounts of credit card debt, you can look to saving for the education of one of your children, a large purchase like a home. I know education is a priority for many people, and obviously with the high and rising cost of education, I know it can be hard for parents to put their immediate and even long-term retirement needs ahead of those of their children. But I will just remind you that you do want to pay yourself first, as they say, make saving for you a priority, because you do want to keep in mind that children can earn scholarships, they can borrow, take out student loans to pay for school. But you cannot borrow money to pay for your retirement. So if you don't save for retirement, you're not going to be able to go to the bank and take a loan in the future to fund your retirement. So pay yourself first and get your priorities in order. That's an important part of your budget. Start by creating a budget. Creating a budget is a powerful tool. It helps you control your money rather than letting your money control you. It gives you the power to spend and save in a way that puts your priorities first. And as the saying goes, failing to plan is like planning to fail. So if you don't plan and manage your finances to achieve spending and savings goals, you will be hard pressed to achieve these goals. So your first step is to create a budget so that budget can show you how to manage your spending, save for the future, and live comfortably in the present. Creating a monthly budget isn't difficult, but it does take a few steps. First, you determine your monthly take-home income. That's after-tax income. So what you bring home after taxes are deducted from your paycheck. You record then your spending for a period, let's say a month, and then you compare those numbers. You compare your monthly spending to your income, and you need to commit to spending within your means, within your spendable income each month. When you put these numbers together, the most important thing is to be honest with yourself. Don't lie or fudge. With a budget, you're only cheating yourself. And there have never been so many easy ways to follow these steps and create a budget. There are two ways to get started. You can track it yourself, or you can have it tracked for you. Track it yourself, that's the simple way. You keep it simple. You just start to write things down, keep a financial record on paper or using a computer spreadsheet. Or you can have it tracked for you. You can get online, you can download an app. Budgeting apps are convenient and many of them are free, at least for the basic version. They can help you spend and save wisely, pay your bills on time, invest your earnings. Lots of options today. Pencil and paper works just fine. You can also create a computer spreadsheet to track your earnings and spending. A simple Excel spreadsheet, a Google Sheets document will work. You can even share this spreadsheet with others in your family to track your household spending habits and see where you might be able to trim expenses as a family unit. If you would like a spending sheet that you can print off and just write in and fill in different categories, or an Excel template, of course you can just go online and Google and get lots of different options. But at the end of this presentation, you'll have my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to send you either a spreadsheet or a form that you can print out and use for your budgeting. Whichever method you prefer essentially follows the same process. You're determining how much income you take home each month. This amounts your total monthly spendable income, and that you put either on your worksheet or in the spreadsheet. Then you track your expenses and your debt to see how they compare with your earnings. And lastly, you find ways to spend less than you earn so that you can save excess money for retirement or another one of your priorities. If you prefer a simple method like pen and paper for tracking your budget, you might also work better with a simple but rigid budgeting system like a cash-based approach or the envelope method. This spending system helps you leverage your budget to reduce frivolous spending or stay out of debt. This again is a cash-based approach. It doesn't require that you track your every purchase. You just take your budget that you put together and you set a spending limit for each of your expense categories. Then you fill envelopes with the allotted cash and use only the amount for purchases in each category. Once an envelope is empty, you can't spend any more money on that particular category for the month. Take, for instance, groceries. You have your grocery budget. You fill an envelope with the amount of money that you have dedicated to groceries for that month, and that's what you use, the money in that envelope for groceries. That's a way to, like I said, it's very rigid, but it definitely allows you to live within your means. And I know firsthand, I've seen this work for some people. You know yourself better than I do. You might struggle with keeping track of all your electronic payments, what payments come when, monitoring account statements, balances all the time. And this cold hard cash based envelope type of approach might work for you. Or it could also be a start to at least get your spending under control, and then you can move on to a different budgeting system once you get that spending under control, keeping things simple with a cash-based approach. Another simple and popular budget is the 50-30-20 budget. It is not a cash-based approach like the envelope system, but it helps you to control your spending by lumping these smaller spending categories into bigger spending buckets. 50-30-20 are the percentages for each of the three buckets. Using this method, You spend roughly 50% of your after-tax income on what we'll call needs, necessities, or must-haves. Things like groceries, utilities, mortgage or rent, minimum required debt payments to make sure you keep on top of your debts and don't get in trouble with debts going to collections. So that's the bulk of the budget, 50% for those needs, 30% for what we refer to as wants, nice to haves, discretionary type of spending. This bucket would include things like dining out and entertainment. And then 20% of your budget is going to go to savings and debt repayment. This bucket, again, it's come to the forefront this year in 2020 during the pandemic, when so many of us have unexpectedly found ourselves or loved ones with no income coming in or reduced income for months on end through no fault of our own. So building up some emergency savings is key. Use 20% of your after-tax income to put something away for the unexpected, save for the future and retirement, pay off debt. And this may mean doing a bit of a two-step dance between the saving part and the debt repayment, according again to your priorities to accomplish your most pressing goals. If your absolute essentials overshoot the 50% mark, the top category, the 50% for your needs, then this budget allows for wiggle room. You may need to dip into the wants portion of your budget for a little while. It's not the end of the world, but you'll just have to adjust your spending. Also, if you find yourself in this situation, you consider asking yourself, is this really a need or is this a want? Some expenses are essential needs, obviously food, clothing, gas. Others, you might be able to define as a want. So this is very unique and individual to you. Distinguishing between needs and wants is more art than science. And this is the gray area or wiggle room. Budgets, I said, are individual and unique, just as unique as we are as people. So if you're eager to get out of debt as fast as you can, you may decide that your wants can wait until you have some savings built up or your debts under control. But your budget shouldn't be so austere that you can never buy anything just for fun. 50-30-20 is a simple plan where these percentages in each bucket, they act as guideposts for you. Sticking to these ranges over the long term will help you manage debt, have room to indulge occasionally, and savings to pay for irregular or unexpected expenses and retire comfortably. Budgets are meant to help you. You still need to have fun and enjoy life. If a budget is too strict and doesn't have any wiggle room, you might not stick to it. If writing down all of your monthly spending or entering everything into a spreadsheet is not for you, then you're in luck because there are a bunch of budgeting websites and or apps that you can use to leverage technology to simplify your budgeting. These online providers are attractive because most of them will establish a secure connection, syncing with your different accounts. They'll load transactions automatically and even categorize your spending for you. That's not mentioning all of the different tools that they provide. They give you a visual confirmation of progress towards your goals or how you're doing with your monthly budget. Having a website or app, it truly keeps your budget right at your fingertips with your smartphone and lets you see at any moment where you are with your saving and spending. I know a lot of banks have started to incorporate this with their banking apps. And here are a few budgeting apps that have good reviews. Some are free. Some do have a cost for the premium version. Maybe their basic version is free. Each one offers something a little different, so you want to do some research to find the one that fits your needs. But there are two basic types of these budgeting apps. They're the trackers and they're zero balancers. The trackers at the top of the list, they offer a high-level view of your finances. They display your transactions in real time. They don't take too much effort to set up. The zero balance apps, they will force you to account for every dollar, thus the zero balance. They want you to categorize every single dollar to either spending or saving every month. And they do tend to be a little bit more costly. You'll see that those have a cost associated with them. Mint or mint.com, that's at the top of the list of trackers. That's one that I personally have experience with. I've used it for years. It is free. It's from the TurboTax people. So if you use TurboTax to do your taxes, you're familiar with Intuit, the TurboTax company. Though Mint does come with ads, it being free, you get promotions sent to you. Simplify, the second one on the list, that's from Quicken. And that's received really good reviews. It costs a little bit, which might discourage you or might make you a little bit more committed. At least with a little bit of cost, then you don't have to deal with all of the ads. And having some skin in the game might make you stick to your budget over time. The zero balancers, every dollar you'll see on the list there, that is from the radio show host and anti-debt crusader Dave Ramsey. If you like what he communicates, every dollar is a budgeting program that he promotes. If you liked the cash-based envelope system, but it's hard to work totally with cash in today's day and age, there's now an app for that. So envelopes that you see there, it does have a cost, but that's an app that uses that cash-based envelope system. So you can see there's really something for everyone. Now that you have your budgeting system to get you started, you're on your way, you're snagging any employer match that you get in your employer-sponsored retirement plan, you have a little bit set aside for emergencies, then you can start to work your way down your priorities. You can start to go after that toxic debt in your life, high interest rate debt like credit card debt, personal loans, payday loans. And I refer to this as toxic debt because it's debt that's not tax deductible, like mortgage interest or student loan interest. And it's not debt that you took out to acquire a valuable asset like land or your house. Not to mention these debts, they carry pretty high interest rates generally, so you can end up repaying 2 to 3 times what you originally borrowed. If you're not careful, if all you're doing is paying the minimum, you might pay a lot more than the amount that you borrowed. But if you're like most Americans, paying off a debt's going to be one of your priorities. So in this segment, we'll look at gauging your level of debt. We'll talk about the debt to income ratio and a couple of different methods for eliminating that debt. Get your debt to income ratio or DTI. You've done most of the work because with your monthly budget, you've listed out your monthly debt payment amounts to things like credit cards, car loans, etc. You divide that by your monthly income, but this time we're working with monthly gross income before taxes. That is the income that they'll use to calculate your debt to income ratio. So this time you're looking at gross income. What do you make per year before taxes on a gross basis to determine your DTI and some of the ranges that I'll give you to see where you compare on the scale. But this percentage, this is your debt to income ratio. A good way to understand the debt to income ratio is looking at an example. Here we have James, and you'll see James, his gross income, $48,000 a year. His spouse earns $36,000. Then we're going to look at James' debts that he has from his budget, and we'll see that the debt payments that he makes on a monthly basis total $2,000. He and his spouse combined have $7,000 a month in income. Dividing the 2,000 by 7,000, that gives us a percentage of 28.5%, or his debt to income ratio is 28.5. Now that's great, that's just a number, so we have to put James on the scale and see where he falls. James' debt to income ratio of 28.5% falls in a pretty common range for most Americans. This will help him set his priorities within his budget. While saving should be a high priority for James, lowering debt may be more of an important goal. You can see these ranges, and again, these are a little bit tricky, especially if you live in an area where housing is very expensive. Your housing may make up a large percentage of your gross income, so that may move you up the scale in terms of debt to income ratio. But figuring out that debt to income ratio, it's a part of the budgeting process. It'll help you determine where your priorities should be. It'll also help you determine if you need some help. If you're in a position where your credit card debt, personal loans, if you can't pay those off in the next, say, 5 years, you may need to seek some assistance with debt relief. If things are really bad when you've done your budget and looked at your debt to income ratio and you're off the charts over that 50% and you can't get any relief working with your creditors, then that's where you might have to look at a situation of something like a bankruptcy. But you can't get to this position and realize where you are, what steps you can take to resolve your situation, or where you need to go from here until you do your budget and until you look at some of these things like your debt to income ratio. It's pretty easy, right, to figure out the debt to income ratio. Just remember with the debt to income ratio, it's your gross income, where when we're dealing with our budget, we're always looking at after-tax income. But it's great. It gives you a snapshot of your financial health. And then if you do need to look at some remedies for your debt situation, there are two basic ways that you can improve your overall financial health and deal with this debt. The high interest regime, that's focusing on the highest interest rate debt first. So you repay debts based on the interest rate that they charge you, paying off the one that charges you the most interest first. They also call that the debt avalanche method. The other is the small balance therapy, or what's also known as the debt snowball method. The one on the right, that small balance therapy, that's one that's also promoted by Dave Ramsey, who I mentioned before. So that targets your smallest debt first, no matter what the interest rate is. But it helps you build motivation, because if you have a small debt that you can face head on, get that paid off, that debt's gone, then you can move on to the next debt. And that's sort of that snowball effect, or that momentum that you build by paying off each of those debts. So choose the method that helps you the best, the one that you feel works with your personality, and take that debt head on and confront it. And lastly, I have some information for the couples out there. If you're married or if you're in a financially committed relationship, I highly recommend going through the budgeting practice with your significant other. Then once you've determined your monthly saving and spending amounts, you establish your priorities, your goals, and figure out a system for your combined finances. This one that I'll mention, the yours, mine, and ours, it allows you to do that and still keep a semblance of your financial independence. So with the yours, mine, and ours, it's a strategy where you have 3 separate bank accounts. You have your individual account, your partner has an individual account, and then you have the ours, or that's your joint account. So with your budget that you put together, you've already totaled your monthly income. Next, then you figure out what percentage you contribute of that monthly income. If you and your partner make the same, then it'd be 50-50. But let's say, for example, your monthly income is $5,000. You contribute $3,000. Your partner contributes $2,000. That'd be a 60-40 split. So when you're looking at covering your monthly expenses or your monthly spending needs, then you, since you make 60% of the money, you're going to contribute 60% of what's needed to cover the monthly expenses. For simplicity's sake, let's say your monthly spending needs are $1,000. Well, into that hours account or into that joint account, you're going to transfer $600 or 60% of that $1,000 amount that you need each month. Your partner then is going to transfer $400 or 40% because your partner makes 40% of the income. They cover 40% of the monthly spending and saving. So that joint account or the hours account is what you use to pay your recurring monthly bills and contribute to your savings goals. What remains in your individual accounts, well, that's what you have to spend. It's sort of like your allowance, and it can make you feel like a kid again, have a little bit of independence. You can do what you like with the money in your account because you know you've got your spending and saving covered with the hours account, and you have some freedom. It can cut down on those awkward money conversations. You know your needs are covered. It can, reduce fights over paying bills, which is the last thing that we want to happen. And budgeting and using one of these systems can help you avoid. Budgeting is truly foundational to your financial success. It is that cornerstone. You need to go through this practice. Find the money management method that works for you. If it's an envelope, a cash-based type of approach, the yours, mine, and ours for managing finances with your partner. If you're open to it, use an app to make that budgeting less time consuming. And then live within your means. Work to control your level of debt. Use one of those debt payoff methods, whether it's based on the interest rate or paying off the smallest debt first. And lastly, make retirement savings a priority. As they say, pay yourself first. If you get an employer match, take advantage of that. Make retirement savings a priority. That can help build those healthy habits with your finances to produce success for you going forward. Thank you for taking some time out of the day to listen to this presentation. Again, my name is Greg Klein. You have my phone number and email address listed on this slide. So feel free to reach out to me with additional questions. And I hope you take care of yourself and get to budgeting, because I know budgeting will help you with financial success in your future. So thank you for listening in. Take care, and we'll talk in the future.